Welcome to Case Files. Arizona has a reputation for being a bit spooky, with stories of haunted locations like Hotel Congress and the Wishing Shrine, the Santa Cruz River where La Llorona is said to roam. But what about the legends of large flying creatures? Now, these winged beasts have captured the imagination of many, and it's no surprise that various regions of this hot desert state are home to tales of such creatures, especially in Tombstone, the famous site of the Earp family and the notorious shootout at the OK Corral. Tonight, we start with an amazing encounter from Tucson, Arizona. What is a paratrooper? Well, a paratrooper is a military parachutist, a soldier specially trained to conduct operations by parachuting directly into designated areas. It's an amazing yet challenging profession. Tonight, retired paratrooper Laura Brockert, along with her children and a fellow Army comrade, had a surreal encounter with a large variant of Pterosaur in Tucson. This creature was enormous and flew low to the ground. Could this really have been a case of misidentification? Or is it something far more sinister? Join us, and perhaps you too will believe.
Arizona is unlike any other state in the United States, a land steeped in both historical significance and an air of mystique. Rich with tales of cowboys, bandits, and U.S. Marshals, such as the legendary Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. It also harbors a darker side, where the line between fact and folklore often blurs. Yet, beyond its historical intrigue, Arizona is home to numerous supernatural stories and unsolved mysteries. One such area of intrigue is Sedona, a region dense with both natural beauty and the allure of New Age settlers who have drawn to its purported mystical energies. The state also boasts other enigmas, such as the enduring legend of the Lost Dutchman's gold mine, hidden deep within the Superstition Mountains, and ghost towns like Jerome and Tombstone, which still echo with the whispers of their haunted pasts. Arizona's folklore is further enriched by tales of cryptids, creatures that exist only in the shadows and of legend. Amongst these is the McLean monster, Arizona's very own version of Bigfoot. Alongside stories of thunderbirds and skinwalkers. In Algonquin mythology, the thunderbird is described as a being of immense power and strength, sometimes interpreted as a benevolent nature spirit. The term legend is crucial here, for it reminds us that what we call legend may in fact have roots in reality. The Algonquin people describe thunderbirds in various forms. Some are depicted as majestic birds, while others, often more menacing versions, are described with reptilian features, suggesting a creature of terrifying power. There have been numerous reports of flying reptiles throughout Arizona, spanning almost every region and county. Perhaps the most well-known of these sightings is the case of the Tombstone Thunderbird, which may have been exaggerated, not by the witnesses themselves, but rather by a local newspaper journalist. This journalist later claimed that the creature had been shot down and brought into town for study and display. Years later, in May of 1963, writer Jack Pearl published an article in Saga magazine titled "Monster Bird That Carries Off Human Beings." Pearl recounted several supposed encounters with pterodactyl-like creatures in the 1890s. According to his account, two prospectors brought a dead pterodactyl into Tombstone on a wagon, nailed it to a wall, and posed for a photograph with the creature, surrounded by a group of 6 men. This was the first recorded mention of such a photograph, though it would not be the last. Could a pterodactyl or similar pterosaur have survived in the late 19th century in Arizona? Given modern-day eyewitness testimony, this is conceivable that ranchers may have encountered a pterodactyl in Arizona in 1890. However, the lack of concrete photographic evidence leaves this question open to speculation. The illustrations circulating online, while intriguing, are, in my personal opinion, more likely to be hoaxes. That being said, Reports of flying reptilian creatures have continued into the present day, particularly in the western United States and the surrounding mountain regions. Are real pterosaurs still being sighted in Arizona skies? Located just northwest of the Mica Mountain in Tucson, Arizona, the Tanque Verde swap meet is a popular gathering place for locals and visitors alike. It was in the spring of 2021, during the twilight hours of late evening just after 7:30 p.m., when Laura Brockert and her family were enjoying the various attractions the swap meet had to offer. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, the vibrant colors of the Arizona sky painted a picturesque backdrop. The family of five, like many others, was relishing the festivities, food, and rides that the Tanque Verde swap meet is known for. Having visited the location before, nothing seemed amiss until, unexpectedly, something extraordinary occurred. Laura quickly alerted Daniele Gonzalez, who was beside her. Together they gazed up to witness an unusual sight. Above them, a massive creature soared approximately 50 feet off the ground. Unlike a drone or remote-controlled flyer, this was no mechanical object. It was alive, organic, and moving with purpose. The creature's skin was dark grayish hue, and its wings appeared thin, membranous, and bat-like in structure. The sight captured the attention of Laura's children, who too watched in awe. Laura and Daniel observed the creature for nearly 30 seconds as it flew overhead. Its wings, resembling those of a pterosaur, were not only large but also displayed elastin bundles within the membrane, suggesting considerable strength. The creature's muscular build was evident, with strong arms and clawed hands extending from the wings. But there was something else. An elongated neck, almost ivory in color, extending from the body. After studying the creature's anatomy for a brief moment, Laura and Daniel estimated the wingspan to be at least 20 feet. Laura then glanced around, hoping to see if anyone else had noticed the extraordinary sight. To her surprise, no one else appeared to be looking up, at least not in the immediate area. It is important to note the anatomical features of this creature's wings did not align with the fossil record of known pterosaurs. If it was not a pterosaur, then what was it? And where did it come from? Pterosaurs are an ancient and diverse group of flying reptiles known for their vast migratory patterns. Some species make their homes in mountains, caves, and underground chambers, particularly during the spring and summer months. Many are nocturnal, feeding either in the early morning or late evening hours. There have been reports of pterosaurs attacking humans with fatal consequences. Fortunately, the encounter at Tanque Verde swap meet was a mere flyby. Both Laura Brockert and Daniele Gonzalez served in the United States Army. Laura was a member of the 82nd Airborne Division from 2000 to 2004, serving as a paratrooper, and later joined the Army National Guard, where she served until December of 2016. Additionally, she briefly studied biomechanics during her academic career. Given their backgrounds, one must ask, why would two respected military veterans concoct such an extraordinary tale? Both have dedicated their lives to service and have shown immense credibility throughout their careers. The question, therefore, remains: did they witness a species of pterosaur? Or was the creature something entirely unnatural?
The RRN Ropen Radio Network is brought to you by 511 Tactical. Always be ready.
Welcome, Laura.
Hey, thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Oh no, it's a pleasure. I'm really excited to actually speak with you face to face, as it were. So let's give the listeners a little bit of a background on you. You're a retired paratrooper. When did this happen? What brought you to that swap meet that day? Start on the day you were born. No, I
The
know
day I was born.
every detail. Who was your second grade teacher?
Oh, I was phenomenal. I had a phenomenal second grade teacher. Sorry, yeah, no, I was in the military. I joined my 18th birthday, and after that, I went into the National Guard, and then I have also, did some hobbying as far as acting, producing. But I've known Daniel pretty much since middle school, and those are our 4 kids. And when we went to the swap meet that day, it was kind of a random idea out of nowhere. The kids just started begging to go, and we just ended up there randomly. No expectation of seeing anything as we did. Was quite phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was definitely a very quick, life-changing experience, and I'll never forget it. I think that once I had that experience, I let it sit in me for a little while before I did any research. When I finally did, I ran into a video that you guys had done, Jake Guerra, and when I reached out to him on Facebook, he had actually been dying in the hospital. So thank goodness he got through that experience, or I think I would be pretty much out there wondering who I could tell this to, because even the kids, they don't like to talk about it because it's such a different experience. What we saw was absolutely nothing like anything we'd ever experienced or seen before. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's just really hard to fathom. Like, your brain couldn't wrap yourself around what you were seeing because you're trying to compare it to something that's happened in the past. And let's put it like this. We just arrived. The sun was going down. It was twilight. And I liken it to the time that the bats come out of the cave.
Right.
And so because of that, my first instinct was, is that a bat? But absolutely impossible, because not only was it ginormous, but the flight pattern. And I wanted to specifically point out that the physics of the flight were unlike anything I'd ever seen before. And so that's what took my brain so long to really figure out what was going on. And I took a 1 millisecond to look around and see if anybody else was noticing this thing I'm drawing a major ruckus to. Thankfully, Daniel did look up and the kids looked up, so I wasn't alone. But I did noticeably pay attention to the fact that nobody else cared for some reason. I thought that was bizarre. Yeah. But and another thing, over the time, I wondered what made me look up. And I'm going to tell you, I think after a lot of thought on this, it was the displacement of the air. The wings were so massive. The way that it flew, it didn't have to flap its wings very long. It was mostly straight, but when I finally did get a chance to see it flap, it only went up and down very slowly and gracefully as such. All the way to the top and then down, like half back to where it was fighting at. And I think that just because of the massive wingspan must have caught my attention with the difference in the air pressure. I'm not sure, but I know that I was looking at it thinking I don't have much time to get a camera out. That was something I thought would I want people to know what I've seen. So I made that commitment to studying it, observing it as scientifically as possible at that point. And I can't say anything that it was like, other than the wings of it were shaped exactly how bats are. And so I think that was why I thought, is that a bat? And me and Dan are kind of discussing at that point, no, it's not a bat, it's too big. Whoa, is there a lizard is it a lizard? But it was something that actually, I think since then I've done some research. I think they do have actual pictures of this thing, one picture. There was a news article that went and it was called Legend or Lie, and they were talking about the Thunderbird of Tombstone. And the picture that they used for the cover story, I've identified that is the closest, probably what it was. They had like 5 or 6 or more people holding it up. It was dead, and it was something. It looked just like what I had seen. The difference was when I saw what I saw, the head was noticeably weird. Okay, I'm gonna say that. I didn't identify like a head itself or a face or anything like that. I'm gonna liken this thing. It was like a long ivory colored thing. It was weird. No head. It was just like ivory like almost like, but perfectly shaped. There was no bulging or anything, but the picture that I'd seen, it showed it like a head, like it had. So it made me think, well, during flight, this thing tucks it, similar to other birds of flight. And
Right.
so what I'm thinking, so that's why the only way, everything else about that picture was exactly what I saw. It was very membranous, like wings, where I had actually heard at one point that they were trying to mimic the flight of these pterosaurs, and they were using a wind tunnel to do it, and they couldn't mimic the flight of pterodactyl. And I don't remember how long ago that was, but it was long before I had seen my sighting. And it actually occurred to me, well, they were doing it wrong because they're trying to use the wings above the body. What I saw, the wings were under the body, and it was more like, hang glider kind of thing.
Okay.
And the trajectory was completely straight. There was no like moving around, no like major flapping like bird, like you see birds or bats. It was more like gliding, and then a really simple once in a while, and it didn't match my expectations at all. It completely defied what I knew physics to be.
Okay. So let me take a step back here. You're in Tucson, Arizona, at a swap meet. Where was the swap meet held exactly?
It's the Tanque Verde swap meet there in the middle of town, Ajo
Okay.
Way.
Okay. And where would that be for people who may not be familiar with Arizona? Like, is it north of Tucson, south, east, west, or kind of in the middle?
I say pretty much in the middle, maybe southwestish
Okay. Okay. And
of Tucson.
what year was this again?
Oh gosh, I mean, I can't remember the year anymore. It was probably 2021. I
Okay.
have it in my Facebook. So the night that I had seen it, the night after that, I went and said, "Oh, so pterodactyls do exist after all." That was me
Gotcha.
just coming to terms with what I saw. Well, it took me a lot of guts to really like even say that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I was just like, yeah, no, everyone's gonna say I'm just making this up or it's crazy, or there's like so many different reactions that I did have when I did tell somebody that I was like, yeah,
Right.
this isn't something that people are gonna expect to exist still. But no, they definitely there's at least one, and in my opinion, that means there's got to be more.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So this is actually relatively recent. Like mine was 1992, so
Yeah.
over 30 years ago. Because I'm getting old now. But yours is, I mean, post COVID. Like this is after COVID had come
Yes.
out. Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So it's Tucson. Is it spring, winter, fall? Kind of, what time of year?
I would have to check my Facebook to see the exact time, but I'm pretty sure it was like around now, like March, April timeframe.
Okay. Gotcha.
It's almost like the anniversary again. Yeah, spring.
Gotcha. Hey, perfect timing, right? What this would be like if it's 2021. This would be your 4th anniversary. So there you go. Your post toddler phase of an eyewitness. So okay,
yeah, just long enough to kind of start like having to remember and like forget things that were second nature, like just a couple years ago.
Yeah. Oh no, trust me, I get it, and yeah, this is one. And again, these are experiences that your brain is trying to wrap itself around these concepts. This is not something that's it's so far outside of not just what you experience on a daily basis, but even your mindset, your worldview doesn't really account for stuff like this. So when it happens, your brain's just like, what's happening? It's trying to process, it's trying to grab data and try and make sense of what you're experiencing. So okay, it's about Twilight, right? and you're out. You look up, and you see this creature. About how far up was it from you
Oh, I would
and
say
the family?
150 feet in the
Really?
air. It
Okay.
was really close. It was flying very
Mhm.
low, and I, being a paratrooper, have watched a lot of things fall from the sky,
Right.
and so I feel like my ability to notice and
Mhm.
decipher that is pretty good. So it was close. I'd say at the most 300 feet, the most.
Okay.
It was no way that it was that far.
Gotcha. So this is something that would have, again, it wasn't so close that it would have necessarily attracted a lot of attention, but it's definitely not a plane or something that's a mile up. This is something that's relatively close enough that you can see the details. You can
Yep. Oh
feel the.
yes.
You said you could feel the
I
displacement of the
actually,
air.
yeah, I actually thought for a second that maybe it was some weird kind of UAV, just because it was flying so perfectly straight and it's just
Hmm.
so perfectly level, and not really like usually birds have to kind of go in different
Right. Yeah.
altitudes to keep their momentum going.
Hmm.
It just kind of reminded me of that at first, but it was close enough for me to actually be able to see, no, this is biological material. It's a real like
Hmm.
animal. It's
Right.
definitely in that realm.
Okay. Um, so let's. Okay. Great. About how, again, it's only an estimate, and it's not like there's a tape measure hanging around, flying around with this thing. But about how large do you think it was? Because you said it was large, but at rough estimate, what are you thinking for the wingspan?
I was going with about 20 feet, maybe more.
Okay, so about the size of like a Cessna, then maybe a little bit
Um,
larger.
um, I would say smaller than a Cessna, but definitely comparable to a Cessna. So somewhere
Okay,
close to that.
okay, and all right, so interesting. And you said that the wings, instead of being like say parallel to the body, they sort of arced downwards a little bit, sort of making like a, or do they come like straight down and then out?
Oh no, no, they were straight out. He was holding them out like straight out
Okay.
from the body. Like he was like almost laying on top of his wings. His legs were connected to his hands, like they were all encompassing. So if he were to
Mhm.
be on the ground, I would assume he would have to, the wings would be in front of him, like curling up if he pulled it in or anything. But it
Okay,
was
gotcha.
straight, like yeah. There
Okay,
was no like angular, like I'd heard other people's testimonies describe.
gotcha. Okay, and this is it like immediately straight overhead, or is it sort of at like an angle to you when you're looking at it?
A little bit to the left of me, like
Okay.
so a little bit off at an angle, but almost
Okay.
like I could see directly underneath it,
Hmm.
um, but a little bit of an angle.
Okay, so
Like
it's like
it's kind of
a,
so
so you're underneath, but also at like a three-quarter view. So it's not coming straight overhead. You can kind of get that
as it as it
shape.
continued to fly, I got to see, yeah, all of it. Like
Okay,
yeah, it's hard to
excellent.
explain.
No, no, no. Well, again, that's why we're gonna kind of play with this a little bit. Where we want to go a little back and forth, get a better view of it, understanding of it. What kind of colors were you seeing on this? Was it sort of a gray, or was it a reddish brown, or
Hmm. No, it was gray. I would say almost. I was saying into black, but it wasn't black. It was more gray because that membranous like wing thing, it was
Mhm.
definitely like see through. So
Right?
it was like still gray, like almost like if you took black slime and you stretched it out and it kind
Hmm.
of had that grayer color. Yeah, so that's what it looked like there. The only other color difference was the head thing, whatever that long head thing was
Hmm.
absolutely like an ivory. It was distinctly two different colors from the head to the body.
Gotcha. Okay, so the head was a different color, but the body was this dark gray.
Yeah,
And there was no, and again, the membrane was obviously more translucent. So but the body itself was like consistent color. It didn't have like maybe
yeah,
a different colored underbelly or anything like that. Okay, interesting.
nope,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, no, yeah. A lot of normally you'll have a lot of animals will have that sort of duotone where it's maybe darker on the top, lighter on the bottom. But that's, again, we don't really have a lot of experience with living pterosaurs, so we don't know if they, can they change colors, or what their coloration would be necessarily. So it's interesting to get those details. But the head was a distinctly different color, is what you're saying.
yeah, and a distinctly different texture altogether. That's where I was going with the ivory thing. It was almost
Mhm.
like if you took a tusk of an elephant, you elongated it and you stretched it straight, and I'm saying from the neck part where there was no neck, it was just this ivory thing going straight out completely. Like it was super long. I think that was, I mean, that was probably 20 feet by itself, 18 feet. I don't know. It was
Really?
huge. I don't know. Maybe I'm okay. Hold on. It's been a while. I'm gonna say
That's
this.
fine.
It was like as big as the wingspan was. That head thing was really long as well. Like
Interesting.
it was comparable.
Okay. Did you see a tail? And we're going to come to the wings in a
Okay.
second. I know everyone's begging for the wings, but we're going to come to the wings in a second. Did you see a tail? Was it long? Was it flanged? Was there no tail? What did
No,
you, or do you remember
actually,
seeing anything?
no. So this is interesting. The first time I spoke to a scientist about this, the first
Mhm.
thing they asked me was there a tail? And no, there was noticeably no tail. There was noticeably no reproductive organs of noticeable anything like that.
Mhm.
So those were two things I noticed that that did not have on it.
Okay. So no,
So that was
no tail at all. Okay. Good to know. And I'll keep everything else family friendly on that one. But no tail. And so now we're going to come to the wings because I know everyone's begging about it. You said like a bat. Now, did you mean that it was membranous like a bat, or did you see like fingers? Like because when a bat, what you're
Yep.
seeing is the hand. It has okay. So you saw actual bones moving through the membrane
Yep. And on
like
the
a bat.
and then one of the fingers turned into a long, like a bone
Hmm.
through it almost. Yeah, and it almost became the structure of the wing itself, and it was super huge, super huge. Yeah,
So
and I wanted to point
mhm,
out, like he's holding his wings up with these buff arms, like it looks almost like
mhm,
human arms, only like super huge, like buff, like really muscular, like
yeah.
holding the
Mhm.
wings, and it was all part. You could tell it's all connected.
So when a bat flies, like it basically has all 5 digits. There's a membrane between all of them, and that's what you're actually seeing. That's where you have the sort of jagged outline. Did this have a jagged outline like a bat, or was it more?
Yep,
So it looked so. We're saying straight up bat with like the multiple digits in the wing,
yep,
or okay,
yep, and it shaped just how like you're gonna get those little dents, almost like
hmm like
yeah,
Batman, right? Like the Batman logo.
like
Where you got
Batman. Yep,
mhm,
exactly.
okay, and so when the membrane came back to meet up with the body, did it meet up at the feet? Did it meet up maybe a little bit further up? Where did it meet?
At the toes, the feet,
At the
whatever
feet?
those things were.
Yeah.
Yep,
Okay. Okay. And
the
so
entire body encompassed it. Yeah.
all right. So this is a little on the fly here, and unfortunately for the people listening may not necessarily see this, but one quick second here. Again, artist illustrator, right? Sorry, it just occurred to me just for clarification. And let me get to the camera. There we go. So it's like the wings were like this top part, and the feet would be down here, correct? And not like the second one. Is that what we're saying?
I'm sorry, I can't see it. I can't see it. It's not like
Gotcha.
catching it onto the camera there.
Okay. Yeah. If you can't see it, it may be really small on your thing. It was just sort of trying to really define the image of the wings. So this was so the wings were very much like a bat, not necessarily like other recreations of pterosaurs that you've seen. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely different. Yeah.
Okay.
Usually they stop like halfway to the body, and
Hmm.
like kind of the feet kind of hang off at the end. I seen them do it that way. No, that what I saw, the wings took up all the way to the feet. It was like it was laying on its own wings completely.
Gotcha.
Like
Okay.
yeah.
But again, specifically with the fingers, like it looked like it had a bat-like wing versus a more bird-like structure to it.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And how fast do you think it was flying? Just again, rough estimate, obviously.
It was fast. It didn't look like it was so graceful, but yet just kept going. Like in no time flat, it already gone out of my view, and it's Arizona. It's like you could see forever. So
Right.
I mean, it was going fast.
Okay.
I can't even. I haven't been able to quantify like how many knots it was or
Yeah.
miles per
No,
hour or
that's
anything
fine.
like that. But it was
Hmm.
so it was like as fast as you would see like a UAV going. Like it was
Gotcha.
fast.
Okay, so this was, again, you don't have to estimate, because again, you have a history as a paratrooper. You've seen, so this was moving quickly. This was not just lazily hanging around like a buzzard would, where it just sort of circles. This is straight line.
Nope.
It's going from A to B, and it doesn't want to.
Exactly. I
Okay.
thought it was on a mission. My theory at that moment was it's going from one mountain range to the other, and it's just trying to hurry up and get there.
Okay, and you said its musculature looked almost human.
Yeah,
That it
more
was,
yeah, like a muscular lizard or a lizardly human.
I understand.
Okay.
Um, yeah, no, just again trying to paint that picture. And you said again, so the head, the thing that you see is again sort of the head was sort of this ivory, this elongated ivory thing. Y- Would you imagine that the neck is sort of making an S curve and like it's resting its head on the back of its head on its own shoulders, and what you're seeing is maybe like a beak? Is that what you're sort of describing? And it's moving that
I think
direction?
it's perfectly possible after I saw that other picture of something that they had seen
Mhm.
in Tombstone
Yeah.
that was
Mhm.
like, not flying. I think that, yeah, that's perfectly possible. Like it was a big structure of some sort, but it didn't have like a neck. It was weird how it went from shoulders, buff, muscular shoulders with this
Mhm.
shoulders with these, with just that little skinny ivory thing in the middle. And I was thinking, it must be why it's able to keep that trajectory so straight. It seemed to me like that head thing was much heavier, much denser of a composition. It was
Gotcha.
definitely more like a beak could be,
Mhm.
but it looked heavy. Like I don't. I mean, obviously, I'm just
No, I get you.
guessing from my observation, but it definitely was denser.
Yeah, well, definitely not membranous. So, I mean, again, that's all we have is the visual information. So it's not really something you can, we're not going to ask you to estimate how much the beak weighed. Again, assuming it's a beak, right? Just it's a structure. Did you see anything like a head crest of any form, or was it just sort of
Mm-mm.
smooth? Okay.
I was trying so hard. My brain wanted to see that. Like I could tell my brain was like, there
Mhm.
should be some sort of like head thing, but it wasn't. I'm like, no, look at it as it is. And I really, really just observed it as best I could to, no, look at what you really see, not what you want to see. And I don't,
Right.
you kind of explained that phenomenon yourself pretty well there.
Yeah.
It's like you're trying so hard to make it make sense, but at the same time, I was like, no, be a scientist, see what you actually see and say what you actually see. And it was
Mhm.
no real like head, like there was no
Right.
change in like how to
Mhm.
explain it. It was just so straight and no head. Like it was just weird.
Understood. Understand completely. Again, so how long do you think you actually looked at this thing while it was, again, you're trying to take your time, you're trying to see it, but it's also kind of cooking along, right? It's trying to get across the street, so to speak, right? Trying to cross that road.
Yeah, I
How
would
long do
say
you think you actually saw it?
no more than 10 seconds or at the most. But I'm telling you, I think time slowed down for me a little bit there.
Yeah,
So there definitely was yeah,
I
fast.
understand. Hmm.
But I felt like I did get an adequate look in those 10
Right.
or maybe or so seconds.
Hmm.
I mean, it definitely wasn't a minute.
Right.
It was something definitely less than a minute, but
Hmm.
it was, um, yeah, not enough time for me to get out my camera because I knew that I'm not good at like hurry up and getting it out. I was just like
Hmm. Yeah.
really just trying to make sure the kids were watching, make sure that their dad was watching, and I just wanted to enjoy the experience. But it was
Hmm.
fast. It was maybe 10 seconds. I
Okay.
wonder how long he would say it was because it's probably about that.
Right. So I mean, top end, because again, like you said, you see something strange, your brain starts running, you get adrenaline going, thing kind of
Yes.
slows down, right? So
Yes.
time slows down when you get that adrenaline going. So this could be no more than 30 seconds, but you're saying probably between 10, 15 seconds that you're actually
Mm-hmm.
watching it. And, by the time your brain realizes what's even going on, your brain, your time's starting to slow down. You've got maybe a few seconds. So this may be like a 7, 8 second really good look at this thing, and then it's basically just off, and it's over. The experience is done.
Yeah, I think that 10 seconds is about how long I got that major look. Like
Okay.
it's giving me all where I can
Mhm.
all the details. After that, it was just so off in the horizon that it was a dot, in the darkness going off closer
Right.
to where it was darker.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So let me do a little wandering around your experiences after this encounter, and just to sort of play with it a little bit. Um, did you have any elements of high strangeness occur in, within the months either leading up to or after this event? Anything that would,
Um,
would be considered
well, I
unusual?
think something unusual was that I had passed away and came back to life, and Jake was going through the same issues when I was trying to contact him. I thought that was a little odd that here we're having these near-death experiences at the same time. Um, I did also talk about the time that I did glow, which is something that Jake
Mhm.
said is something that they is a theme that happens with these sightings, not with the people who see them, but the things that they're seeing.
Yeah.
The thing I saw had no bioluminescence whatsoever, but I said, well, that's a strange thing because I did have an experience in the military in the middle of the night of bioluminescence from my fingertips. Anytime I touched something, it would brightest light I ever saw, glowing from
Mhm.
my fingers and like my entire hand basically. And I had a witness to this as well. And she actually did a sworn statement for me, and everyone else I told her, like, I was like, I don't know why she doesn't seem to care as much as I do, but maybe it's because it happened to me. But
Right.
I was just definitely so those are the odd things that I can think of off the top of my head for sure.
Okay. Okay. Let's work. Let's start. We'll come back to the whole dying thing. Let's work on the bioluminescence for a moment here. So, you said your fingertips were glowing for a period while you were in the military doing the paratrooper thing.
Yeah, no, okay, so this was when I was in the National Guard, and it was only
Okay.
for like I was touching
Mhm.
some. I was like getting up in the morning. Everybody else was asleep in the tent, and I was just getting up. I had something else I had to
Mhm.
do, and except for another girl quite off in the distance, and I was like,
Mhm.
"Hey, come here! I want to show you something." And I was afraid to stop touching it because I thought maybe not touching it anymore would make it stop glowing. But I walked all the way over there to tell her, and she kind of like first
Mhm.
she's like shined her flashlight at me, and I said, hey, you don't need that, just come here. And then sure enough, I touched something again, and it did it again, and she got to see it. And I was like, I didn't want to stop touching stuff because I wanted it to keep glowing, because as
Yeah.
soon as I let go and then I
Mhm.
found out that that's interesting that the algae in the oceans, when they
Mhm.
bioluminescence when they're touching something. I said that's
Yeah.
exactly the,
Mhm.
the same dynamic I experienced with that, and that was the only time that I remember it happening so long and like so obvious that I was able to gather a witness.
Okay. And that happened how many, couple of years, 10 years prior? Like
Oh
what's the time
gosh,
frame?
I'm gonna guess at least 5 years before this
Okay.
sighting.
Okay. And so not not so getting back to what was clearly the lead headline here, you died? Let's unpack that a little bit, shall we? I mean,
Okay, yeah.
I don't know if there's an easy way to ask that question.
No. I actually, I had it was like right after my COVID shot. Actually, 30 days after my COVID shot,
Mhm.
I had suddenly acquired something called von Willebrand's disease. I bled out. I had to get a blood transfusion. Thankfully, I was in the hospital when I did code.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was not too long before the exciting, and that's why when I finally
Mhm.
started researching what I saw, and I found Jake and his what you guys all do.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
when I reached out to him, I was like, I gotta talk to this guy. Like, I know he would believe me,
Mhm.
at least give me a chance to like give
Yeah.
him my
Mhm.
story. And at the time he was like, I'm sorry, but I'm in the hospital dying. I'm like deathbed over here. I'm like over here praying,
Yeah.
like, please just come on. I mean, not to be selfish, but I mean, it's like the only thing I know
Yeah.
is like my chance
Yeah.
of being, heard.
Right.
So yeah,
No.
that was pure. I thought at the time pure
Mhm.
coincidence, but then like I don't know, like then when Jake, I finally did talk to him. He tells me, well, in the cryptozoology world, pterosaurs is the only thing that the cryptozoology world doesn't think is real, and I'm like, what? are you serious? What are the odds of this? So it was really good that I ran into him and everything worked out, because apparently it's a creationism thing. And I was like, I never considered myself a creationist per se. I mean, I do believe in the Bible and a lot of things about, I mean, I'd say I'm more religious than a lot of people I know, but I wasn't like, I remember seeing creationism in a science book for homeschoolers, and I thought that was funny to me. Like, wow, there's people who really, think different out there. But I've never considered myself a creationist by any stretch of my imagination, and so I thought that was an odd thing to categorize my sighting as.
Hey, I kind of go back to the whole dying thing. So this happened, you said, a couple months before your sighting?
I can't. Honestly, I didn't do. I'm not doing really good with my timelines right now. I should have done
I
it. I should
understand.
have re looked them up before I got on here, because it would be so much help right now.
Like I said, we can
It
go
wasn't.
look that up for you.
Yeah, but it was obviously post COVID, because I had my COVID shot like 30 days
Okay.
before I died. So I only remember that
Okay.
specifically.
Okay, gotcha. So you take the shot, you then have this event, you bleed out. Luckily, you're in the hospital. They bring you back, and then, like you said, yeah, if you got the shot in 2020, yeah, okay, then yeah, we're dealing with a very short time span here. You have this
Yeah.
encounter. Anything else has anything else happened post that encounter that would be an element of high strangeness, perhaps?
Nothing comes to mind.
Okay. J- just want to cover all the bases. In cryptozoology, there's a phenomena that it's actually, I'm going to have to do a little bit of thing on this, because this, as far as who created the name of the paracryptid, and it's interesting that there are a lot of things that are considered cryptids that have high elements of what's called high strangeness to them, and so it's helpful to try and see um, if there's a connection between some creatures and elements of high strangeness, the supernatural, because then that kind of tells us maybe where these things are. Are they what I like to call nobies, naturally occurring biological entities, or are they a paracryptid? So,
Ooh,
yeah,
so there's a difference. I see. Okay, I see where you're getting at
right.
here. I do think
Yeah.
that it is strange that I do
hmm
accidentally say what other people are thinking a lot.
hmm Hey,
I
yeah.
do that a lot.
Well,
And people are
it's
like, "How did
important.
you know that?" Or they'll ask me, "Hey, guess this thing," and then I'll
Mhm,
guess it exactly.
mhm,
And they're like, "How did you do that?" And I don't know. Like, that happens to me like way more often than I think it
mhm.
should. So that's
Well,
kind of strange.
yeah, but that's definitely not an external high strangeness. If that makes any, if that sort of phrase
Yeah.
makes
No.
any sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, absolutely. It could be that, again, one of the reasons certain people see things, more often, than others, is because you're maybe a little bit more observant, or there is maybe something that says, "Hey, there's something amiss here," right? You're even again, your paratrooper training, your military training, you're trying to be more aware. Situational awareness becomes sort of a background thing. You pick up on this thing, or something just says, "Hey, look up," and you see it. So that again could tie into that. Um, but before we go, I'd like to take a quick moment here and say thank you to one of our sponsors. This segment of the Ropen Radio Network would like to give a shout out to the good people of the Wildlife Safari for all of the amazing work their crew provides, taking care of many different types of animals on their property. They're training to be wildlife ambassadors, sharing the wonders of cheetahs and promoting conservation efforts. Did you know that Wildlife Safari is the leader in cheetah conservation? It's true. So the next time you visit Oregon, check out the Wildlife Safari in Winston, Oregon. You're closer to Africa than you think. Um, Laura, back to you. So you've had I have to admit, I did not see this conversation quite going this direction with everything that's happened to you. You've definitely had a really interesting sort of time span there, dying, then not dying, and then seeing this creature. It's fascinating.
For sure.
Aside from sort of just the mind shock of having this happen to you, what have you had any changes to your life? Did this lead you in maybe any direction that you weren't anticipating?
Um, I mean, nothing's really standing out. I did definitely go on a different path. I moved states, and I definitely am on a different, you know, I almost look at it like I'm on a different timeline now. I know
Yeah.
that sounds a little weird, but I definitely do identify that things have definitely changed. Um, I've
Hmm.
changed careers. Pretty much everything for me has changed. So, I mean, that's definitely a yes, but I can't say anything that stands out as like what an audience member or someone else who's experienced this might relate to. Um,
Well,
because as part of it being because of the experience.
right. No. And again, oftentimes life takes that left-hand turn for you when you have an experience like this, and it comes with a lot of changes. Sometimes I fought my experience for over 20 years. I honestly didn't believe my own encounter because I lived in DeSoto, Texas. It's a suburb of Dallas. It, I hadn't heard of anybody seeing anything else like what I encountered. So I said, okay, I must have been wrong somehow. And I
Yeah,
fought it.
you definitely
Yeah.
I definitely
Mhm.
understand what you're talking about because there was
Yeah.
4 other people who saw what I saw when I did, and out of 5 of us that saw it, it's really hard for a couple of them to even admit it anymore. And it was actually 1 or 2 of them right away where they were like, "Oh, I don't even know what we saw," and then like, "Oh yeah," and then every so often one of the kids will say, "Remember when we saw the pterodactyl?" So
Mhm.
like it's kind of interesting. Like they go in and out of believing it for themselves. So I
Right.
understand that you know even a grown up
Mhm.
could go through that. But I think I'm the type of person that like no, I have confidence in my ability to observe things, and
Mhm.
if things are wrong, I'm the one who's going to speak up. I've always been that way, and I think that like if anybody else saw what I saw, nobody would know
Yeah.
it.
Right. No. I
That
completely understand. So, anything in your journey to sort of understand what you saw and how you've experienced it, um, anything that you would like to tell our audience? Is there anything that maybe you would, any kind of a message you would like to give them?
Okay, so there was a Batman movie that came out, and I noticed they started elongating his head more and more and adding a little bit
Hmm.
more height to it. And I said, I don't know, maybe that Batman is actually based off of what I saw.
There you
I
go.
wouldn't put it past it.
Yeah. Little predictive programming there. Well, Laura, I really appreciate your time and appreciate you coming on with us and giving us your story. It's really important because this is a newer encounter. A lot of encounters that I have are a little over maybe 10 years or older, and yours being a lot more fresh is is amazing. I mean, you saw something that most people can't even fathom of seeing, something that they're told is impossible, and not only do
Yep.
you accept that you saw it, you're willing to speak about it. I personally have a feeling that a lot of people have seen impossible things and are just saying, okay, I don't want to deal with it and I certainly don't want to talk about it. And so a lot of information goes just unknown. A lot of these encounters go unspoken. So I wanted to thank you for coming on and speaking with us and just take this moment to appreciate your bravery in
Thank
being
you.
willing to speak to such a large group about this.
Yeah, I also did want to point out one other thing a lot of people ask about is no, there was no feathers.
Mhm.
And I
Okay.
do think that if there were bones from it, I
Mhm.
did want to say that I've seen collagen under the microscope, and I think that it's been pretty like the little things that like I can't remember what they call them, but the little things that hold the structure of the wing, they
Mhm.
could look like feathers under a microscope if it was like, for example, a
Okay.
fossil.
Right.
So
Gotcha.
but I think it does still go within like the realm of what science has already known as far as fossilized remains.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I just wanted to point that out. There was no feathers,
Okay.
so it was
No, I appreciate
definitely
you
not
doing
a bird. Yeah,
that. Well,
but
again,
yes,
we
thanks
don't.
for having me in.
Yeah, we don't know of any birds that are that large anyway. And again, most birds don't have a membranous wing. So, well,
Thank you
I'll
so
see
much,
if he has it.
Jason.
No, appreciate you.
All right,
You have a good one.
we'll hop off now. All right, you too. Bye bye.
Mhm. Bye. For a lot of our listeners and anyone doing research, they may have heard her story and said the description doesn't fit a pterosaur. That maybe it's something else. And and while that is a valid interpretation of what she's of her testimony, I would like to take a second and discuss something that's not really or really two elements that's not really very well discussed in our community. My specialty is understanding how people see things. If there's anything I have an expertise in, it's how people perceive things that they are seeing. And one thing I would like to point out is you don't actually see anything. What I mean by that is, a lot of times we envision memory like a VHS cassette, right? It's just, okay, something has been seen, it's put on this film, and it's there, and it's That's not quite how this works. Your eyes are actually part of your brain. That's not really a separate organ. And what happens is light comes in, it goes through the cones, and then that data is translated by the brain. This is how optical illusions work. The brain is actually processing information and trying to make sense of it from what it already knows. That's why you can have a two-dimensional plane appear to be three-dimensional. You can get dizzy looking at certain flat two-dimensional planes. There's so many optical illusions that demonstrate that your brain really isn't seeing what's there, but rather perceiving and trying to make sense of it. That being said, when you see something, and any psychologist will tell you this, if you see something you're unfamiliar with, you actually don't see it. Your brain doesn't know how to process that information. Laura had 10 seconds to see this creature. And in that 10 seconds, her brain is saying, things like this don't exist, to, oh, these things exist, what am I even looking at? If you don't really have a field of reference for it, the brain is simply trying to make sense of it. This is why human beings anthropomorphize animals that perhaps we're unfamiliar with. Again, doing studies in cryptozoology and talking to eyewitnesses, there is this tendency to anthropomorphize. And the reason is, you see eyes, the brain goes to the one thing we know very, very well, the human body. It becomes human-esque eyes. The nose becomes more human, the lips more human, the overall stance more human. This is why when people talk about lizard people or whatever, oftentimes people don't describe there not being a tail, but then sometimes people will see a tail. Why? Well, because people say, well, it's a reptile, it must have a tail. It's not that the person is lying, it's that the brain is just trying to make sense of what it's perceiving. So there's a tendency to anthropomorphize. That's why that could be one reason why the body that Laura described was more humanoid. Also, the wings. Since there aren't a whole lot of things flying around with membranous wings, really it's just members of the bat family, that's where the brain's going to go. That's what your brain's familiar with, is, okay, it's got a membranous wing, therefore it must be a bat. Or the brain is using that information to create, and so that's what she's remembering. So it looks like a bat to her. Again, 10 seconds, not a long time. Long time, but not that long. So a lot of time, the fine details are either misperceived or misremembered because of unfamiliarity with the creature. We see this with police reports, right? You have 3 eyewitnesses they're viewing a human doing things that we're all familiar with, and yet those 3 eyewitnesses can talk about people being different heights, clothes can be different colors. It's not that the event didn't happen, it's that everyone's seeing things differently because you have fight or flight, you've got the adrenaline pumping. We're not a VCR. Our brain it has to process that information and make sense of it. So that is something we need to remember whenever we're listening to anybody's account. It's not that they're lying or even necessarily wrong, but rather that the brain's trying to comprehend something that it didn't even know existed 5 seconds earlier. Just something we need to think about.
For every encounter, there is a mystery. And for every mystery, there is someone somewhere who has a missing clue. Perhaps that someone is watching. Perhaps that someone is you.